YouTube live right now.
Okay.
So, and then we'll, like I said, Michelle, we'll start with you in a second, but I'm just setting up right now.
Well, you've disabled screen sharing, so.
Yeah, I know. Just give me a second because I have a there, and then I'm going to say all panelists. There we go, and that should do it. Okay, so we're now live on YouTube right now, people. So it's already 7:31. We got 35 people right now. Hopefully I can get this right. I think we have mostly our panelists. Okay, Abdul's here. Okay, so just welcome everyone aboard. This is January 8th, 2021, our RASC meeting. We're live streaming right now on YouTube. So if you want to go to YouTube and watch it there, that'll be nice. Okay, so we'll kick it off right now with Michelle with what's new.
Yep, so you can hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I typically give a what's new presentation. And hello. Oh, 1 second. Let's try that again. Ah, there we go. Okay, so life on Enceladus looks great. I was looking at this Universe Today magazine article about the potential for life on Enceladus, which is one of the moons going around Saturn. And well, okay, this is where a record player would come in and scratch the needle and say, okay, hold on, what's going on here? How can you get life from all of this? So since quite often I talk about life on other moons and stuff all the time, I figured, hey, maybe I'll dig into this a bit deeper. Well, that was a mistake, but I'm going to share that with you. So, so where do we start? Well, the first thing we should ask is, what is life? Or what do we know about life? And we'll keep it simple. We'll talk about microbial life or cellular life, because we know from that process, over evolution, we can build us or whatever. So the particular branches of life then are the Archaea and Bacterial life forms. And this is basically the basic fundamental process of life. Whoops, I don't like when it happens. So basically, all life likes to take ADP and convert it into ATP, which they can use later to do work, reacting muscles, thinking, whatever, or work or cellular work inside, and keep busy. What that means then is that what they do is they take, in this particular example, you can see they're taking O2 and CO2 from the environment. So it's taking O2 and through a process called a redox process, it reduces O2 to CO2, which is available in the environment. Okay, so what is a redox process? A redox process is where one atom gives up its electron, becomes oxidized, and that's given to another atom, which then becomes reduced. Here I'm showing on the right, I'm showing oxidization of iron to create rust. That's pretty straightforward and simple chemistry, but through cellular respiration, the processes can be a lot more complex, as I'm showing here. So this is a process called methanogenesis, and this is an Archaea respiratory pathway. These types of microbes are known as extremophiles. For instance, on Earth, you can find these types of microbes in volcanic vents, high acidic environments, and even in your intestines, which produce methane through the process of methanogenesis. So if you remember your biology, which I had to remind myself of a bit, and I'm not going to get into the details here. I watched like a 7-minute quick video, but basically you can see the reaction over here. And so this cellular animal creature pulls in, captures a reductant from its environment, and then takes CO2, and through this complex process reduces CO2 to CH4, methane. And that process allows energy to convert ADP into ATP. Okay, so what other kinds of processes are there? Well, there's aerobic respiratory pathways, and I looked up the paper that was referenced from this Universe Today article, and that's what I went through. I skipped all the math to some degree, but you can see here, the red ones in the diagrams represent the oxidants or the oxidizers. And all these processes are processes that occur in some type of cellular organism on our planet. And there's also anaerobic respiratory pathways where we have sulfur oxides and iron ferrites are also that serve as oxidizers to produce ATP in anaerobic animals. Okay, so that was all interesting. But now the question is, well, where do these oxidizers come from? So let's look at that. It's actually quite interesting because normally energy dumped into a system comes from the sun. But in this case, it's a process that's called radiolysis, and it's the chemical production through radiation. So for instance, here, this is a model of Europa, which is another article I had to look at to get some more information. And the radioactive sources is potassium and uranium oxygen combination. So the potassium is released through some hydrothermic activity or whatever. It's released from the core, and it actually goes through processes, radioactive decay processes, which emit these photons, which then dissociate water and break it up into our oxides like H2O2. That could then get subsumed into the rock bed and interact with pyrite and some radioactive uranium oxide and produce some sulfur oxides. And so that kind of completes this little picture that I showed here, where you can see the production of these elements that are being fed into this organism for cellular respiration. Other radiation pathways, for instance, for Europa, which is in the Jovian environment, you can't live there. There's just too much radiation, well, especially on the surface. And in fact, I think it's called a Europa Clipper that they're going to send to explore this planet. This moon can't go into orbit because it destroyed the electronics. So it just swoops in, does its measurements, and swoops out, and then transmits the information. So in the environment, we have ionized hydrogen, oxygen, and sulfur, and high energy electrons that produce all these oxidizers, which gets subsumed into the crust and eventually deposited in the ocean. Okay, so where does that bring us in terms of Enceladus? Well, this is a summary of the paper I looked through that was attached to the article. It's a rather lengthy paper, but just to quickly go through, on the surface of the ice in the environment of Enceladus, you have these energetic electrons which hit the H2O in the ice and cause it to dissociate into O2 and H2O2. And some of that gets sprayed away through the jets, and then some of that gets deposited on the surface of the ice. This interaction typically happens somewhere within 3 nanometers to 3 centimeters, and fallback from the jets actually cover the ice. So after, let's see, well, about 4 or 5 gigayears, a gigayear is 10 to the 9th years, that stuff eventually gets deposited into the ocean as the ice melts below and the ice gets piled up on top. And so you get that into the ocean. Also, you have your potassium radioactive chain producing it, and you have a chain in the core also producing all these things. And all these, and these are graphs and stuff that give you the rates of production and so forth that are in the paper. I've just put them there just to give you an idea of the complexity. So all of these things compete with, so what's going on is you have all these oxidants, but the environment is also eating up all those oxidants. And whatever's left can be used for cellular respiration. So the Gibbs free energy determines how much, the change in Gibbs free energy determines how much energy is left that can be used for cellular respiration. So this curve shows the creation of oxidants by radiolysis and then the consumption of oxidants by the environment. The paper's full of a lot of chemistry, so I'm really just giving you a high level picture. And then the energy that's left over can be used for cellular respiration. And this whole process depends on temperature, pressure, subterranean fluids, circulation, all sorts of things. That's shown by this diagram on the right. And we know at the pole of, the southern pole of Enceladus, that there's thermal vent activity or some kind of activity, as the infrared, Cassini's infrared shows that there's some heat production in this section, and these are referred to as the tiger stripes, because that's the vents where everything comes out and it looks like a tiger slash the surface of the moon. Okay, so now where does Cassini fit in this? Well, Cassini measures whatever products are sprayed out of the tiger stripes. One of the main instruments used for that is the neutral mass spectrometer instrument that's located here. It's a quadrupole spectrometer. What that means is you have 4 magnets, they're set to a certain strength. When an ionized particle goes through it, it either makes it through or doesn't. And then you get the mass to charge ratio from that. And you can build up this spectrum, and then you can analyze the material that's being sprayed out from the jets. So that's one of the instruments on there of many. So this is Cassini's Enceladus 21, number 21 pass, and this is its closest approach. And this is the composition of the plume that it found, and these are the species and the offers, which are referred into various papers of the concentration levels. So what does this all mean? Those measurements can be used to constrain what species of microbes that we can potentially find in Enceladus. So the conclusions of this paper that I read that was attached to the Universe Today article basically says that they've analyzed all these processes through a very complex stoichiometry, very similar to combustion stoichiometry, which I'm familiar with. And there's enough Gibbs free energy for cellular respiration. Now, Cassini didn't detect any O2, so although that's suspect, but let's just assume that is the case. Then the only channel open is the anaerobic channel, which is preferred. And that means that there's the O2 and H2O2 are converted subterranean to subfiles as sulfide, sulfur oxides, and ferrous compounds that are used in anaerobic respiration. The predicted biomass, regardless, the predicted biomass from these models for aerobic and anaerobic is aerobic is 10 to the 12 to 10 to the 19th microbes, and anaerobic 10 to the 18th to 10 to the 19th microbes. I was wondering, how many cells make up a human? Because I have no idea what that means. So I Googled that, divided it out, and I converted it to units of humans. So aerobic, you have anywhere from 0.3 to 300,000 humans, and anaerobic anywhere from 30,000 to 300,000 humans in equivalent biomass that can be supported through the energetics of this system. Okay, so that's the end. I took a dive down a rabbit hole instead of covering various topics, but I believe this will complement any other time I come back to the subject on life on moons you'll have that in mind of the actual complexity when we say there's organic chemicals on how much work is put into this to figure that out. That's it. Any questions? I can't really see the question thing here because I have my slide up. I'm not sure how to, yeah.
I don't see any questions on there, Michelle.
Okay. Okay, so people either find that exciting or complex, don't know. Okay, so that's it for me. Since there are no questions, I'll pass it back to our
Actually, Darren has a question right here. So
okay.
If you look at the chat here.
Oh,
yes.
sorry, it was in the chat.
In the chat, there's also questions now. Okay, so Darren asked if this has been simulated in the lab. Now that's an interesting question. So these theories have a lot of input. For instance, there are deep environments in South Africa where they have actual microbes, so they can look at the chemical reactions. The authors of this particular paper only mainly stuck to oxidization, stuff that was measured in the lab, so they had a better idea. The rest they speculated about because none of the chemistry was done or studied. And I think there's one question, there's 6 questions in the, just Darren. Okay, it's full of Darren. Okay. Any other?
No, that's about it.
No, what might? What? Okay, well, yeah, I'd have to put my slide back up. Let's see. So they're asking what substitutes for the lack of oxygen. That's actually, that is an anaerobic process, which doesn't have oxygen in it. Let's see if I find. Yeah, so this is the anaerobic processes, and you can see here there's no, I mean, oxygen is bound up inside a sulfur oxide molecule, but it's not freely available for the reaction. So that's basically how the respiration would take place. Yeah, okay. I don't know if there's other questions. Well, I think Darren's a chemist, so now he's giving me a lecture. Yeah, sorry, I guess Darren would have to speak on that, but he's saying NO2 can be substituted for O2 also. However, no, that's okay, Darren. However, there is no nitrogen within the environment. Yeah, I don't think there's any nitrogen. There was no mention of nitrogen in the environment. Ammonia is not, okay, I'm seem to be having a question. Okay, I should stop that because I'm looking at the chat and answering questions on the chat and it's just going on. But basically, there are no processes that I've read about that have nitrogen involved. And I would presume that when they survey these planets and other moons, they hypothesize of the elements that are available within the environment to produce such products. Other questions? Okay. I will turn it back then to the chair.
Okay, well, thank you, Michelle. That was great. Okay, we'll continue on with Jay. Let's, what's up for the next guy in January?
Well, hello, everybody. I hope you're all surviving. We're down to the last 7 to 9 months of this thing. So I guess we've got ourselves a light at the end of the tunnel, haven't we? I don't think that's quite what I wanted to show. Okay, here we go. What's up? January, February. There's not very much that's happening this month. We are in a time period where meteor showers are at a minimum and the comets are all gone away and the sun is quiet, and but we'll find something to talk about. Talk about the sun. No sunspots today, but we've been seeing a lot of H alpha pictures recently, and you can see that in the lower left there.
Sorry, Jay?
Yep.
You have your share screen on?
I do.
Yeah, we don't see your presentation. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Well, let me get out of here and back to.
Did you share?
Oh, I see. It's here we go. I just tabbed over to it instead of pushing their little buttons. Okay, now we'll go back to where we were. I should have known something because Zoom doesn't work very well with the shortcuts, and this one did. So when things start to work, you're not in Zoom. Okay, so no sunspots today. You can see that there's from the hydrogen alpha picture there in the lower left that there are still little bits of activity going on. Nice prominences on the edge. Stan's been sending out some pictures recently. Sheila's been showing us what's going on the major part of the solar surface. And sunspot cycle is coming up. There's been a little bit of aurora recently. But overall, it's been a sort of on again, off again amount of solar activity with messages going out every now and then to get a look at the sun when something particularly interesting is happening. But as you can see from the lower right graph, we're on our way up for a little more activity. I took a look at the night sky tonight, and you'll notice that normally I talk about the Milky Way, but tonight's sky, we're looking right out into the void. The Milky Way is all down around the horizon in the evening. It's about 5:30 in the evening, this picture. And the stuff on the left is rising and the stuff on the right is sinking. But even so, we're in the realm of the galaxies, which we've talked about. And that little yellow oval that I have there is actually where you'll find most of the galaxies. So evening observing at this time of year is really one that should be focused on galaxies and magnification. Not particularly good for binoculars, although some of these galaxies are bright enough to overcome that. So I take a look at this here in the center. I sort of zoomed in on that part and I let the machine show us where some of the bigger NGC galaxies are. This decided it likes NGC names instead of Messier names, but you can see how nicely they cluster down in here in Virgo. They extend up through Canis Venatici, even into Ursa Major. There's only a small fraction of the galaxies that are there, and a couple over here in Leo. These ones in Leo are part of the Leo triplet, which is up in the upper right here. The other galaxies that I show you here are parts of the Virgo area, M89, M87. This particular picture in the lower right has got something considerably more than 20 galaxies in it, and that one is focused right down in the center of the Virgo cluster. It's also taken with a hyperstar lens, so it's actually about a 300 millimeter focal length, so easily within the reach of a medium telephoto if you have a way of tracking with it. So it's definitely a time you just point a telescope in this point right here and in the little bowl of Virgo here. Just a little bit. This is Leo, the backwards question mark. So the tail of the lion here, and right in that area. Just point a telescope in there. You don't have to, unless you're really fastidious, you don't have to plan on hitting anything. You just sweep around and you'll pick these guys up pretty easily. It's also kind of a bittersweet display of planets here. You can see we start in the lower right with Pluto, and then Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter, all clustered near the horizon. Neptune halfway up, Mars and Uranus up toward the upper left, and Eris and Ceres, two dwarf planets, along with Pluto that are also active. So you're seeing a good chunk, in fact, all of the solar system except Venus in this display this evening. But you can also see then in the extreme lower right, the glow from the sun in this simulation of the night sky tonight. And that means that Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn are going to be a little bit tough to see. Pluto, forget it. And Neptune and Uranus and Mars, of course, will be pretty easy, especially Uranus and Mars are pretty high up in the sky. So we are having a little bit of a display of the most of the members of the solar system in the evening sky at the moment. So Mercury, as I just showed you, is in the sunset globe, but it's moving away from the sun. It'll get about its farthest point distance from the sun toward the end of the month and then start to sink back. It's always going to stay fairly low because, as you can see, the ecliptic here is not got a really sharp angle with the sun. So when Mercury comes out, I have a slide to show that actually. As Mercury comes out from the sun, it'll reach a maximum. It's going to make it pretty decent to see and then sink back to the sun. This is actually between today here and the 15th over here. Excuse me while I get the cat out of the way. So Mercury is going to become a little more visible, but on the other hand, Jupiter and Saturn are going in the opposite direction and they'll be sinking into the sun. Venus is in the morning, but also very low. It's sinking into the sun as well. It's observable because it's bright, but it's not particularly observable because it's very, very low, close onto the horizon. And you'll be only seeing it as the sky is brightening. Mars, of course, is high overhead, but it's getting smaller. It's less than half the size it was when it was at its maximum in October. But it's getting higher in the sky because the ecliptic is getting higher in the sky. So the viewing conditions will probably improve, but not the size or brightness. Uranus is close to Mars, that makes it easy to find. You can see here that it's about 5 degrees off and 10 degrees on the opposite side on February 9, which means they have to pass each other, and that happens on the night of January 21, 22. Now, Jupiter and Saturn are still close together. It's kind of your last chance to see them, although they're nowhere near what they were 2 weeks ago when they were passing each other. Jupiter goes behind the sun on the 29th, and Saturn goes behind on the 24th. So very shortly, for weeks or so from now, they'll be impossible or nearly impossible to see. However, Jupiter is bright enough that if it is above the horizon, you got a clear sky, you'll see it. Here in the diagram, I show the start positions of Jupiter and Saturn on January the 8th and the end position. So you can see that distance across here versus this one, how much they separate in a period of just barely over a week as they disappear. We have Comet Atlas still around, but you can see from the graph over here that it's on the decline. It's down around 10th magnitude, maybe a little lower than that, and it's fading away. So Its main advantage is that it's circumpolar and it's pretty high in the evening. So assuming you can see something that's a 10th magnitude, meaning a 6 or 8 inch telescope or larger, it's still got a little bit of oomph around, still a little bit photographable. And it's actually the only game in town there. And all the other comets that are around, the 24 of them or so, are all down 12th to 20th magnitude. That really makes them a rather poor target, as well as being difficult to find. Pretty pictures. Well, tonight, something we're not going to see. You've got Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn low, but on Wednesday and maybe Wednesday, because at that point, Mercury is farther away. The picture I show here shows them on Thursday night, form a lovely little cluster in there, and with the clear sky and good horizon, they should make quite a little treasure, almost like a little bunch of jewels sitting there down on the sunset horizon. So maybe Wednesday, but certainly Thursday. And they're going to be joined by the moon on Thursday as well. So, but the moon will be not in the cluster, but a little bit above it. Then the moon gets to the other side of the sky, and it'll be together with Venus very low at the sunrise. In both cases, the moon will be a very thin crescent, and it might actually be easier to find the moon by comparing it to the planet rather than looking for the crescent of the moon. So the question mark I have at Wednesday is whether the moon will be visible. The planets will look like they are shown in the diagram. I think you could follow Jupiter at least right down to the horizon. But again, in this diagram, you can see the glow of the sun in the planetarium program. So it's very, very close to sunset. You have to be right out there as soon as it starts to get dark. Mars and Uranus, we know they're going to be passing each other. So they're about 1.5 degrees apart on January the 19th and 20th. And on the 20th, the moon will be there as well. I show a diagram of that on the right-hand side. So Mars and Uranus at the top, and the moon relative to size down underneath them. It'll be quarter moon. So that might be an interesting picture. Most of us don't get pictures of Uranus very often. Then we have Venus and Saturn together in February. So that means Saturn's gone past the sun and it's coming out the other side. It's in the morning. Jupiter is just behind. I don't think we'd see it from here. It's still too close to the sun. But the Venus and Saturn together might be possible. Saturn's pretty faint now, though, and it won't really stand out all that well. And then we get February 11th. 4 planets, Pluto, if you want to count it, gather together ahead of sunrise, but I got a good luck on that one. I'm not sure we'll see it from this latitude, but might be worth a try. They're pretty nice looking when they're all clustered together like that. I looked up grazing occultations. There is a grazing occultation on January the 26th that currently is being forecast just north of Winnipeg. So grazing occultation, for those of you who haven't tried one out, is where a star just grazes one limb of the moon so that it blinks on and off as various mountains on the moon cover the star and then reveal it in the next valley. And one of the best ones that I've seen had about a dozen brightening and fading as the various peaks on the limb of the moon. Very interesting to do. Jerry will recall we've had some good expeditions a long time in the past to go out and watch these things and even do some measurements. But the moon is about 82% illuminated, so it's going to be pretty bright. And for a 6th magnitude star, it's a bit of a challenge. And so we get to the cat. So here we are with the Saturn cats tonight. Thank you all very much.
Hey, thank you, Jay. All right, I guess it's my turn now.
Good, Jay.
Can screen. There we go.
All right.
You have to
Let's-
stop.
Okay, so I'm up next. I'm just getting everything ready here. All right. That's not it. Okay, just a minute, trying to get this going. And there we go. Okay, all right, just a minute. I don't know why it's doing that. I am going to cancel that. Share. Okay, just 1 second. There we go. All right, thank you guys for joining us. We have quite the lineup. We have probably the first time in a long time we have an actual AGM meeting. Because of limitation, it won't be that detailed, but you get the idea. So this is what we have lined up for today. So we'll move on. I have not much to say. This is going to be my last meeting as president, so just bear with me. All right, so again, we are live streaming to YouTube for everyone. If you can't meet the meeting, there's always YouTube. I think it's a lot easier for people to join YouTube than it is Facebook. Code Red, as far as I know, I think Code Red is extended, I believe, for another couple of weeks. So, and we just had a council meeting yesterday. So apparently, yes, calendars will still be mailed out. The Loner School program is canceled. And of course, the Glen Lee Observatory is closed until further notice. All right, again, we do have another seminar. We're gonna have a total probably 6 seminars. We're on a second seminar in January the 23rd. You can find out more details on the website. It's on January the 23rd at 6:30. And I believe the topic is, how do we know that? You want more details, or you want to register for the website or for the webinar? Please see our website and join us. Okay, telescope winners. This is the big thing that we're really proud of. Here are the winners. At the council meeting, we kind of decided like we don't want all the kids to feel empty-handed, so we decided that those people that didn't win the telescope will get a family membership. So I thought it was really nice. So the membership is put into the National Council, so I'm just waiting for a reply back from them, and hopefully we'll get that out to them as soon as possible. Congratulations on to the winners. I think we're gonna have it posted on the website. Okay, calendars, observer. Okay, so again, I think we're about 14 calendars, I believe. We still have quite a bit. So again, we'll shipping out the calendars. Depending upon whether you want it mailed out or without tracking, it's up to you. Please see Abdul. He'll get some out sent to you. Okay, of course, the website. I can't stress this enough. Of course, a lot of information is posted on our website and our form, but in order to get there, you have to be a member. So, and also too, as I mentioned, I am the Glen Lee Observatory Director. So if you've got any questions, please point it towards me. We have some questions here, but we'll get to it later. All right, so of course, Observing Night is going to be canceled until further notice. And I just want to bring this up to our last speaker, Dr. Mario Lavaro. I do appreciate him coming out here. I just can't believe I got him for free, no fee involved. So I'm pretty ecstatic about that. I was able to join us and our main speaker for December. But of course, he does have a book out. So please look into it and purchasing it. You can purchase online. And of course, we do have our regular virtual Boston Pizza after this. So let's have some fun. And of course, stay home, stay safe, and wear a mask. All right, now we can get on to the AGM meeting now here. Brendan's going to be hosting the elections right after this. So, but I'll say a few words. Just a minute. And of course, Abdul will give us, Abdul, you with us?
Yes, I am here with you.
Okay, so soon you're going to be projecting, or you'll be telling us the financial report, treasury
Yeah.
report. Let me just get this started here. And
Okay.
5. Okay, so this is the actual AGM meeting. I believe, Ed, you're going to be recording the minutes of this. So anyways, we'll continue on with it. So I got my report, we're gonna have the financial report, and then we'll have our elections here. All right, because of the limitations of Zoom and the time frame here, I only can do a brief summary of my term here, what the council did. And of course, the council is pretty pleased about some of the things that thank you, Abdul. Okay, you're a little sound there. Okay, so as last night, our membership is, our count is 234, which is pretty good. Of course, one of the highlights I want to mention is we had the one main speaker that we have, Dr. Mario. Thank you for coming out. That was great. One of the things that we accomplished on the council was, of course, the website. I'm very pleased with that. We got the website, we got activities, we got forums. You know, we're promoting our club, we're promoting science, and we got our events being promoted. Hopefully after this COVID, we can do a little bit more. Also, one thing I really like to mention about the beginner's package. So we have new members. We do have a new, we have a beginner's package explaining about where to look for, what do we have, what we offer as a club. So when new members do attend, they have a pretty good idea of where to go and what we're all about. So, and of course, Facebook. I'm really pleased with Facebook. So far, I look at the count right now, we're at 148 members. We're growing. We didn't have that many at the start, but it's pretty active. A lot of people are sharing their pictures, their ideas, and events. I do appreciate that, especially Scott with his planetarium. He had a presentation on last night. So, and again, I can't really show you everything that we did, and we're going to keep it brief here. Of course, I have to mention, I think this was a really good accomplishment on the council about the RASC Winnipeg Center December telescope giveaway for kids. So I think a lot of kids were pleased with receiving a telescope. If not, they got a membership. And of course, with that, you know, because they didn't get a telescope, we do have our Loaner Scope program once it gets back online. And one of the other things I'm going to mention about the Manitoba Park Astro webinar, thanks to Sylvia and Jerry, we do have that. So we have 6 more, I believe, 4 or 5 more actually in January, and I think it's going on for quite a few months. So please attend that. It starts at 6:30 so far. It hasn't really changed. And of course, we have a lot of speakers lined up for that. This is a great way to promote the club and our members and get out there and stay connected. And another thing I'm going to mention before I leave, and this is my president report, is the Astro Sketching program from Sylvia and Jerry. I think it was a really good idea, guys, to have that. It's a great way, again, to get out there and do some astronomy, because this COVID-19, it really just limited us, but we were still able to get out there. So anyways, that's all I have for a report. I can't go into details because of the limited to Zoom. So anyways, next we're going to move on to the financial report, treasury report. Abdul's going to take that away. So hopefully everyone can see this. Abdul, what do you have to offer, or what's the treasury report telling us?
Okay, just one second. the financial report telling us like we have kind of a balanced budget. The revenue mostly coming from the calendar sales and the memberships. Our membership share from this amount is about $23 per member. The other thing, the other thing I want to mention that we are in a safe side, like we are in the surplus, so we are not worrying about getting like a budget deficit, and we hope to continue this in the future.
Okay, so that's all you have to report for your financial.
I would like to mention also that we have some asset, mostly the Glenlee. The value is estimated about 25,000. It could go up and down, but most likely is stable at the 25,000. Our money in the bank, including the GIS, is about 20,000, which is good. Expenditure over the years is about 4 to 5,000, which is also good. And that's all what I have for now.
Okay, thank you, Abdul. That's great. I can see how much I spent on Glenlee. $415. Okay, so anyways, that's good to know. Okay, thank you, Abdul. Okay,
Thank
now
you.
we'll continue on with the elections part of it. This is where the past president, Brennan's going to be hosting it. Brennan, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, as past president, if people remember the before time, I was president once upon a time. I am actually I'm actually pretty thankful here because I didn't have to do much of the heavy lifting around this. I was prepping to, to work this and do it, and then I think Jane Gord basically did all the heavy lifting. So big thank you to Jane Gord for going out there and talking to people, getting nominations and whatnot. So essentially, I am basically just a face, and I'm here to go through this. But before we dive into that, I did want to point out the current council. So we have, for the past 2 years, we've had a great group, and a couple of them are staying on, but I did want to throw out a massive amount of thanks to everyone for the past 2 years of effort. I think it has been probably one of these past, 9 months, has it only been 9 months? Have been some of the most challenging, I think, to run a club like this. And it is incredibly impressive to me that we've been able to not actually just retain membership, but also grow it a little bit. And I think we've done a pretty good job throughout, and I take zero credit for any of that. In particular, I did want to throw out a huge thanks to Brian. I can only imagine how stressful this time would have been for him. So I think he deserves a huge round of virtual applause and any kind of kudos that you can pass his way. I think it's extremely hard, a lot of hard work and very well deserved. Feel free to drop a beer off at his house or something like that, socially distanced and all that.
Leave it on the patio for me.
Yeah, just leave it on the patio. But not for too. You got to give a heads up that you don't want that to freeze. Anyway, not that it's going to in this weather anyway. But all that said, so yeah, huge thanks to everybody, to our current council. But we do need to continue to move on and grow. So what we have done is we have compiled, we solicited for nominations. You would have seen some stuff in the newsletter, which you should be reading. And so we do have everyone. These are the current nominations. I will also add that we have expanded our council to a 6th member. So Bill Crosney should actually be on here, but he isn't.
Yeah, he's on the next one. His term is, oh, right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
It's
you're
okay.
right.
It's fine. It's not a big deal. I mean, we can flip to the next slide, actually, I think.
So if everything stays the same, that's there's Bill
Yeah,
Crosby.
okay. So I get you. Okay, cool. So what I will say is that we are now we will accept nominations from the virtual floor. So I'll run through the positions. If you have a nomination that is not on here, you can nominate yourself. You can put that forward. Now I will add the caveat that if there are nominations tonight, what we will be doing is we will be falling back on something that Gord set up, which is a SurveyMonkey process. Essentially, what we'll do is once we have if there are additional nominations tonight, we will put those into a pile, and we will do an election after the meeting. So we will put that together at some point. TBD. We'll work out the details. So not a problem there if you do want to nominate somebody, but I'll throw it out. We'll give everybody a little bit of time just to respond. We'll take it in the chat. Yeah. Before I proceed, any questions or comments? There are a handful of kudos being thrown around, which thank you folks for recognizing the outgoing council. Really appreciate that. Cool. There are currently no empty positions right now. So as it stands, this is, and yes, Michelle, unfortunately your name got misspelled there on the slide. But these are the current. So these are the currently. I guess I'll basically say, as it worked out, we got the right number of nominations for positions. So, but yeah. So I'll start with the counselor positions. We have. Oh yes, thank you, Jay. I will also add that Stan helped out in assembling the fine candidates that you see before you. So we have 5 open positions for counselor, and I will ask if there are any nominations from the floor for counselor. And I'll give that one more time. Are there any nominations for counselor? Okay, I will take that as a no. So by acclamation, the names that you see before you are now our counselors. Congratulations to the folks. Big thanks for volunteering yourself. It is a rewarding experience. If you have not been a counselor, if you're a returning counselor, you know full well what you're getting yourself into. So. Mostly just sitting around, and we used to drink Jay's beer, but now you just kind of have to drink your own, unfortunately. Okay, secretary. Moving on to secretary, we have Ed Wright is our one nominee for secretary. Do we have any nominations from the floor for secretary? I'm giving these exactly 1 moment. By the way, it's very scientific. Yes, and to reiterate, Bill Crosney is our one returning counselor from last year, or last term. Terms are 2 years, by the way. Cool. I'll just give it one more go. Any nominations for secretary? Okay, then by acclamation, congratulations, Ed Wright. You are now secretary. Ed was you were counselor last term, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I was counselor. So yeah, moving into the secretary position. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for volunteering.
Okay.
And returning, so he is our lone incumbent. Abdul is our nominee for treasurer. You just heard his fine report on the financial state of the club. Don't let that influence your judgment in any significant way. But are there any additional nominations for treasurer? I'll give you all one more on this. Any nominations for the position of treasurer? Excellent. Okay, well, Abdul, by acclamation, congratulations. You are treasurer once again. And thank you again for continuing to do all that you do.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Moving on to the vice president position, Gord. You've been around. You've been around a little bit, and he was a counselor for his previous term, and provided us with, I think, a lot of good input. He also was instrumental in helping us out with the website. But he has offered to take on the role of vice president. But I will ask if there are any additional nominations from the floor for vice president. One more time, I will ask if there are any nominations for vice president. Oh, congratulations, Gord, and thank you again for volunteering. The vice president's job, I've had it before. You'll do fine.
Thank you.
The last one we have is the position of president. This is essentially the person that gets to run the show and enjoy the support and care and love that they get from the rest of council. So we have one nomination for president. It is currently Dennis Lyons, and I'll ask if there are any additional nominations for the position of president. And we'll give it one more go. Any nominations for the position of president, or as Robin refers to it, the person that has to do all the work? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. Congratulations, Dennis. If you don't know Dennis, he's been with the club for some time, and I think he will do great and wonderful things in his role, taking on the role of president in this club. So congratulations, Dennis. I don't know if you're actually online tonight, but
yeah, I think he is on. I just see Dennis there. So it must be him.
Yeah, but seriously, congratulations, and congratulations to all of our council. You're all stepping up in a pretty tough time, but it's a great group, and I know you'll do wonderful. So thank you, everyone. That is it for the election.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. So this is, since nothing has changed, so this is going to be the new council for 2021 and 2022. I'll still remain on council as past president. So I get to see how everything turns out. So anyways, I think we have a really good, strong team on council. So I'm looking forward to be part of it. So we'll move right on. We're going to take a short recess. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up, it's already 10:29. So we're going to do a short recess. I just want to get the presentation up and running. Our next one with Jerry and Sylvia. So just give us a moment's break. Thank you, Brendan. All right. Sylvia.
Yes, okay, so I'm gonna share screen. You ready?
Yeah, I think we're ready. Just a minute. All the panelists are here, so we're all set. All right, if you want to take it away. So our main presentation is going to be sketching. So the members get to present their excellent sketching, and I think it's, again, I'm on the part of the sketching program too. So if you want to join up, please let Sylvia and Jerry know, and they'll add you to the list, and you can participate. Again, it's a great way to stay connected, and I do appreciate all the artwork that people put into it. It's amazing what people can do. Again, I can't stress enough about Sylvia's drawing here. It's just awesome, right? Because it's it's black paper with white pencil, that's very, very different. I appreciate the work on it, and she spends hours on it, I believe. Isn't that right? You spend hours on it.
Yes, some of these things do take a lot of time, and some of them can be quite simple, actually. So.
Okay, well, take it away, please.
Okay, thanks, Brian. All right, so welcome to the Astro Sketchers update, everybody. So we haven't been able to get together like we have been in the past due to COVID-19, of course. So we haven't been doing the workshops under the stars or observing together and doing presentations outdoors. We're gonna wait for the restrictions to lift, and then we'll get back to that. But we have been actually getting together via email, and there's been so much to share this last bit. Actually, we had the Geminid meteor shower, the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, the Mars apparition, where we were at opposition and we were able to see so much on the planet Mars. And also, as Jay mentioned, we're entering a new solar cycle, and we're able to see some prominences and some sunspots. So there's lots to actually talk about. And so this is the planet Mars. It's a watercolor, and I had talked about this a couple of months ago, or maybe the last meeting. And it's a technique from a guy by the name of Andrew Elvin, and it's from 1892. And it's a sketch of Mars. It's actually a water painting, watercolor painting. And something that us astro sketchers sometimes really agonize about is capturing that pinky orangey color of Mars that is seen in the eyepiece, especially during opposition. The color was just so illuminating coming from the planet, and trying to capture that color was really, troubling because you couldn't really get it just right. But a couple of months ago, when the national RASC had this webinar, we discovered this watercolor by Andrew Elvins, and we thought this actually comes really close to that color that we see at the eyepiece. So I thought, I'm gonna try this. It's a watercolor, how hard can this be, right? Well, it turned out that it was really actually hard to do. And I ended up with about 30 or 40 or 50 Mars faces. So if anyone out there needs a Mars face for anything, let me know. I can actually mail some to you if you want. And watercoloring, there's so much to it. Not only mixing the right kind of colors to get that hue just right, but you also have to make sure you don't use too much water, too little water. The papers were crinkling, so I actually had to iron them after I colored them, after they dried out. The brushes that you use, and if you go over it too many times, then it makes a mess as well. So a lot of you who might be experienced with this might know all about this, but this was all a discovery for me. So anyway, the result was this. So I did what Andrew Elvins did in 1812. I watercolored it, and then I cut it and pasted it onto a black background. And the color I got is sort of there, but I'm not really quite happy with it. So, but Mars is now getting further and further away from us, and we're not able to see these amazing details anymore. So I'm gonna have, I guess, 2 years of practice until the next apparition, and maybe I can get better at this. Another thing I did for sketching is the Geminids meteor shower. So for the Geminids shower, you might remember that it was like -200, and there was the wind was 30 kilometers or 40 kilometers. It was really, really cold. So what I did is I sketched a star chart from the comfort of my own kitchen here. And the idea was, to sketch the stars as they would be at night, and then take them out when, at the sunset, and be able to sketch the meteors as they came through. And so that's what I did. As the meteors came through, I plot them in exactly where I saw them on the star chart. Now, I was doing this from the city, and I was hoping to get at least 20 meteors, but I got 5 meteors in 2 hours. So, and here's my 5 meteors. And the thing that really disappointed me, though, is that I was trying to capture that radiant point and have the meteors go to the radiant, to Geminid, but it didn't happen. And here's an illustration of what I mean. Stan Runge is actually a beautiful picture of the Geminid shower, demonstrating exactly all the meteors going back to that radiant point. So I asked the Astro Sketchers, what happened to my sketch? Why are my meteors not going back to that radiant? And I was told that the error was in my star chart. So the star chart that I had plotted in was a flat chart. And I didn't account for the curvature of the sky, for example, something that you can see here with the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy showing curvature and being straight.
Sylvia's chart was very large. She didn't identify all the objects on it, but essentially her chart covered most of the sky. Very similar to what you see in these pictures of the Milky Way here. Now, we all know that the Milky Way is really oriented the way we see this bottom picture. But in many photographs, especially wide-angle photographs, and Sylvia's chart was a very wide-angle chart, you'd see that there's this curvature that's being introduced into the way in which it's photographed across the arc of the sky overhead. So we're not giving an exact explanation of how to correct Sylvia's pathways, but for instance, if you had vertical lines drawn through this picture of the galaxy, you would see that they would all be converging at this point. So something opposite to that has happened with her sketch and the plotting from the chart she used.
Thanks, Jerry. So yeah, Earth or sky curvature, I was missing that. And the other thing is, I was so surprised that I was only able to see 5 meteors. I mean, I know there's light pollution in the city, but I was expecting a little bit more in the period of 2 hours. So many of you actually saw hundreds of meteors that night. So it was a little disappointing, but I know for next time now. And now we have Michelle Boyce, actually, the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. And Michelle, I converted the colors here so that they stand out a little bit more boldly on your sketch. And if you can please talk about your sketches and your experience.
Okay. Is my sketch inverted from the previous one?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe I should have warned you about that.
No, I just wondering. Yeah, so I have a Orion 5-inch Star Max, which is a f12.1 focal ratio. Basically, the maximum field of view I have is 1 degree. So I only had limited time to get this within my scope's field of view. And actually, I went out to Assiniboia Park with a friend and managed on my first iPhone. So this is an iPhone video on the right there that I took of the 2 planets that were, I guess it's called conjunction. Is that the correct term?
Yeah.
Yeah, that were in conjunction. And I've tried on other days to do this, and this is my best shot. My first shot was my best shot. I did try to do this from my balcony, but there's a building, and usually it sets below the building before I get a chance to get a shot off. So this is the best of all my photos. So the interesting thing about this particular photo is that, well, for one thing, I've been practicing astro sketching from photos, mainly because I only have so much limited time to work outside. And so I sketched this and I said, why is Jupiter so fuzzy? Because I didn't like my photos. And then I sent it to the group. And then Sylvia said, oh, you captured the terminator of Jupiter. I went, oh, that's what that fuzzy thing is. So so the interesting thing about sketching stuff is that you pick up these features, and then when you look again visually, you notice those features. So I find it reinforces when you're doing visual observing. It helps a lot, especially with Mars. You look at it as the surface is so bright, and then then you take a picture and you sketch it and you realize, oh, there's a lot of details. And when you look at it again, you see those details. So that really helps. And I guess drawing also from the scope also helps a lot in that regard. That's, yeah. So that's my drawing.
Well, thank you so much. This is actually such a wonderful drawing, even though it's a simple drawing. It shows, like you said, that soft side of Jupiter that we see here on this side. I mean, it could be an artifact of the picture, but it could be the soft side of Jupiter. And your sketch actually triggered that whole conversation on the Astro Sketchers group, where we were thinking about, you know, how we can see Mars, for example, has a face, right? It's a Gibbs face right now. We see Venus has a face, but we didn't really know that Jupiter also had that. And you can tell here, this is a real sharp limb on Jupiter. And then on the other side, it's that fuzzy kind of.
Yeah, I confirm that later. Yeah.
That's right. And so this is caused because it's after opposition. If we were at opposition right now and we had Jupiter in front of us with the sun behind us, there would be no fuzzy edge. So what's happening is, because of our location on the solar system, we're able to kind of take a peek at that shadowy terminator of Jupiter. So thanks, Michelle, for sharing that, because it triggered this whole conversation, which was so cool.
You're welcome.
Okay, and now we have Mars by Lucille Eustache. Oh. And Lucille, please tell us about this wonderful picture that you sketched of Mars.
Well, I drew this from the Hubble picture you see on the left, and I found the picture online, and I thought, since I was having so much difficulty getting more than an orange blur in my telescope, it was so much clearer doing it from a picture. So it seemed that it would be simple at first glance. I thought, oh, this would be not too hard, doesn't look too bad. But then the more I looked at it, and then the beauty of having it on a screen is that you can enlarge it and see all the details. Oh, there were a whole lot more details than I thought there would be. Anyway, it did help me to discover all the different features, and I decided to take a look online and find the map and try and identify the features that I had drawn, because it got me more curious, as I said. There are so many shades of gray, it's kind of difficult to tell, but I think I can identify it. Then I realized I have it upside down. I guess the Hubble picture was inverted, but I had trouble getting the white of the polar cap on the white paper. Though I've since discovered that Jerry uses white ink. I've got to find a white ink. Now I want to go find one of those. Anyway, I started to color it in pencil. You could see the blues around the edges. I was trying to mimic the blues, but then I got a little worried, as you said, with the colors, that I would ruin everything. So instead, what I did is I scanned it and tried to adjust the contrast so I could get it just right, and so that you could see all the details. I didn't do a very good job, but it got a little bit better than. So I did try, as you did, getting some more colors. So I did have, I tried a couple of colors. Oh, I don't know if you can see it there.
Oh, yes, I do see. Okay.
Yeah, so I did try a couple of them. Finally, this is, though, in acrylic. So this is what I came up with, the best color that I can get. So
Acrylic. And what were the other ones that you just showed?
Those other ones, those were acrylic too. That's why I did the test. I did test of different colors.
Oh, cool. You'll have to email me those. I want to see how they look.
Yeah, well, you can't see it anyway on screen.
Yeah, like Jerry said, post them on the Astro Sketchers.
Okay, well,
and we can
some of them turned out good. Some of them didn't turn out so well. But now I think now I can draw over top of that, and we'll see if that works out. Send you that later. Okay.
Wonderful.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Lucille. And, you know, like you said, pre-sketching something is actually so helpful to observing, because when you go to the eyepiece, you don't feel as overwhelmed by everything because you kind of became familiar with the object by pre-sketching like you did. And now that we have, you know, a couple more years until Mars comes back, but mind you, you can still see some features on Mars, but this is really great. And I actually did a little bit of playing around with your sketch too. And this took me literally 2 minutes just on a photo manipulation software that I have. It's called iPhoto, and I just picked the orange. I didn't agonize about that color, but if you want, you can really play around with these programs and really make your sketch really cool. And then, yeah, I put a little bit of more contrast on, you know, because, you know, when you take a picture of your sketch, sometimes, you know, you lose those subtle little features. So I put a little bit more contrast, a little bit more brightness, and I can share some of that information as well on the Astro forum on the software that I've been using.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I would really like to. I did also notice when I was looking through other pictures that there's a lot of change in the color of Mars.
Oh,
too.
yes. Mm-hmm. And right now it's not that, you know, that vibrant orangey pinky color that we saw glowing in the eyepiece. It's not that much anymore, that I've noticed at least. It looks more subdued for sure. So thank you, Lucille.
Okay, thanks very much for starting this. I am really enjoying it.
We're having a great time with this, so thank you for participation. And then we have this beautiful scene by Judy Anderson. And Judy, I also inverted the colors on this. And literally, it took me 2 minutes to do this on Paint. And everybody has the Paint program that comes with everybody's computer. And basically, all you do is just upload it to Paint and select the picture. And from the drop-down, you select invert colors, and this is what you get. So you can really actually play around even more with this and make it even more beautiful. But if, Judy, if you would like to talk about your sketch and your experience. Oh, maybe Judy is not there.
Okay, so the, oh shoot. The thing I like about this, just a minute, I gotta get rid of it.
Too many devices.
Yeah.
I locked it in the room. So I like this because I did it from memory after, and it kind of captured what I was feeling about the noctilucent clouds and the comet and the lake and the reflection, just that night that was so beautiful that we had in July. And I enjoyed the way the clouds were wispy and they looked like waves, but then they overlapped like they weren't only waves. And I think from the video that I took earlier that month, that the wave action is really quite remarkable. And I would have loved to have a video at about that scale. But I realized that it doesn't have to be completely a document of what you see. It can be your impression of what you're feeling. And so the sketch from memory was really what I remembered of it, not probably not accurate by any means. But anyway, just kind of gave you a feeling.
For sure. And I mean, you know, isn't it true, you know, when you look at the sketch a few months after you did it, it takes you right back to that place and those feelings come back, and sketching is just so amazing for that purpose.
That's right.
Okay, and then you did two more, and I also inverted these, and I love these because they also have information on them. So at 1150 it was here, and then at 1250 it moved a little further from these stars, and you had the date and the name, and this is something that's really important for Astro Sketching too, is to put all of these, you know, details on there.
Yeah, those two were done in the field, directly on paper, and it wasn't a great night. I think that was the night we kind of abandoned ship because it started to cloud over badly. But I was starting to be interested in the changes in the tail that you might be able to see with a bigger telescope. And I know that there were many. I've seen a beautiful video of some very high magnification stuff that Steve did, but I felt it was neat to think about the position changing even in a fairly short time. It's only an hour, but it was quite fascinating to think about what you could see and put down in the field. And I think I probably need to invest a bit more in some basic equipment.
Oh, but even though, you know, this is a simple sketch, I remember this wedge right here, right? That was that dark wedge, and you capture that, and it takes me right back to that. So this is wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing these beautiful sketches, Judy.
Welcome.
And I also have a special guest tonight calling in from Calgary, Alberta, Astro Sketcher Eric Klesils. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Eric. And thank you for joining us. And please tell us about your sketches.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I actually just started kind of playing around with sketching not too long ago, just a couple of years ago. I was just browsing around on the RASC website and came across the tutorials, the sketching tutorials by Carol Lacomiac, and it really looked intriguing. I've always kind of been interested in the astrophotography side of things, but it's just so much equipment and I just don't have that kind of resources right now. So, but I do have a pencil and a paper. So away we went. I just started with a couple of odd things and see where it takes me. So actually a lot of the things and techniques that I use are from that tutorial by Carol Lacomiac. I would definitely encourage anyone who's interested in sketching to go check that out on the website. So yeah, I do a lot of my sketching just on white paper with graphite pencils. And I actually like using quite large diameters for the field of view, just so that it kind of correlates better to what I'm visually seeing in the eyepiece. But it's good to play around with different things and see what works for you. And also I like to scan them and invert them in Photoshop, just so that it kind of gives that replication of what you really see in the eyepiece. If you want to pop to the next slide.
Okay.
Also, so yeah, I know a lot of people have mentioned sketching from photographs. This is just, you know, an afternoon, cloudy day. Felt like practicing sketching, so I just found a favorite astronomy book and found a nice photograph of M51 and just, you know, take some time and play around with it, try different things, smudging and darkening and erasing, and just kind of playing around with it for a long time until it kind of looks like the photograph. And again, I think there's a lot of value to practicing sketching from photographs. So I would definitely encourage people to do that as well. Also, so I included this sketch in particular because in the past, I like to just see a lot of different things in the sky when I'm observing. I have a tendency to kind of just hop all over the sky instead of really studying what I'm looking at the eyepiece. And this is a perfect example. I feel like if I would have, you know, just popped over to this, I would have just kind of looked at the two brightest galaxies and moved on. But in sketching, you are so much more in tune with all the little details that you can see in the eyepiece. Things like the one galaxy in the upper right corner, it's so stellar, like it looked like a star in the eyepiece, but if I wasn't sketching it, I wouldn't have taken the time to notice that it is in fact another galaxy. So it's pretty amazing how it really causes you to sharpen your observing skills as well. This was a recent experiment with black paper. I kind of sometimes felt like I was cheating with scanning white paper images with graphite and inverting them. But also with the moon, I've had a lot of difficulty capturing the whites when using white paper and graphite pencils. So I had this this idea, actually was looking on some of the forums on cloudynights.com, and a lot of people there are also using black paper with white pastels. That's what this is. It's white. It's actually a mix of white, gray, and black pastels. So this was just like a big experiment of spending far too much time of, you know, going over it and going over it again and again and again. I actually ended up taking a photo with my cell phone of this same view through the eyepiece so I could continue working on it the next day until I was finally satisfied with the result. But yeah, lots of different techniques, you know, I mean, very cool, Sylvia, to see what you guys are doing with the watercolor and the, you know, cutting it out and pasting it on black paper. It's so cool how many different techniques there are in the whole realm of sketching.
What was that website that you mentioned, Eric?
It's www.cloudynights.com.
Cloudy Nights, okay, I didn't hear that.
And they have a sketching segment of their forum, and so people from all over the world are posting some sketches on there.
And this sketch of the moon is so beautiful, and you mentioned that it was easier to do it, right, on black paper, and yet I have all this black paper, but I haven't, you know.
Yes, like I feel like I in the past I fought so hard trying to make any sketch of the moon satisfactory on white paper with graphite. It's so difficult to get those whites so vivid. So this was just a general black. I actually just went to the local art supply store and got a black sketching paper, a pad of black sketching paper, and that's what this is.
Well, I'm gonna have to try this one day, but you know, I'm still old school and I don't want to try more new things and end up with 50 moons. But
and then yes, experimenting with the sun. Now that there is some activity starting up again. Very interesting to try to capture the faculae. That's very detailed when it's on the limb of the sun, where it tends to be, you can see the limb darkening, which accentuates the brightness of the faculae. So yeah, lots of fun trying different things, from deep sky objects to solar system objects. I would say, actually, like, the primary reason I started sketching so much lately is I'm trying to do the RASC observing program, the Messier objects list, and I set a goal to try to sketch all of them in the next year. So it's kind of given me a goal to get out the door, take my sketching book and do a few sketches every night that I'm out. It's been a lot of fun, and it has really enhanced my observing experience at the eyepiece.
For sure. Well, it's been a real treat too to see your sketches coming through that national RASC Astro Sketchers list. It's really good to see all the work that you're doing. So thanks for sharing, and thanks for actually coming out tonight to be with us in short notice too. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Nice to meet you, Eric.
Likewise.
Eric, could you put the name of the Cloudy Nights forum on Cloudy Nights? You just inspired me to join Cloudy Nights.
Good idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll pop it on the chat.
Thanks.
And speaking of people that were interested in astrophotography, but also in dealing with sketching, I grabbed this off of Damien Peach's website. And Damien Peach is arguably one of the world's great planetary astrophotographers. But on one fortunate night in late September, when he had stunningly great visual views of the planet, he put away his cameras, got out his sketching equipment because he wanted to convey to people what he was actually seeing through the eyepiece, rather than what his equipment usually captures with those stunning, colorful views of Mars. So Damien Peach is still not divorced from doing sketching, which is something he used to do a lot of in the early days. He talks about how back in July 23rd of 1997, and he knows this so well because he's doing something else old school. He still keeps a logbook about everything he's been doing before. And so he knows that on that date, he saw a view of Jupiter that made his jaw drop. He realized there was way too much detail there for him to ever include in a sketch. And that's what motivated him to take up planetary astrophotography so that he could capture more of some of the views. But every so often now, of course, his planetary views have gone beyond what you can see visually, but every so often he wants to come back and convey to us what the visual experience of looking at Mars was. And so here was one of his latest attempts. Now, this is a little bit of a different topic, a little bit more academic, but a lot of what happens with sketching has to do with us fighting through the visual peculiarities of human vision. And one of the interesting things that I stumbled across lately is a fellow by the name of Christopher Graney. He's a visiting scholar, historian of astronomy at the Vatican Observatory. And he's been investigating all sorts of sketches throughout history that include a very peculiar feature that played prominently in the scientific debates of the era in the times of Galileo. And in each of these sketches, you'll see obviously sketches of the moon with more or less detail. But what he was interested in is what he called the edge brightening, or the limb brightening on the dark side of the moon here. And this is most evident when you get very thin crescent moons, because this is when the earth shine is at its greatest amount. Now, Graney, who's also one of the hotshot historians of that period now, decided that he wanted to investigate this particular sketch from that period as well. This was done by Johann Georg Locher, a student of Christoph Scheiner, Galileo's arch rival at the time. Galileo and Scheiner didn't get along at all. They were quite acrimonious about their priorities as to observing the sun and their interpretations of such things. Anyways, Johann Locher was a student of Scheiner, and in 1614, so about 4 years after Galileo had published, Locher published a book with a whole series of drawings of his own telescopic observations. Locher had a wonderful telescope, probably as good as Galileo's in many ways, and was documenting all of his experiences and conducting the arguments. Now you wonder, why haven't we heard of Johann Locher, whereas we know so much about Galileo? Well, it seems the only real reference we have to him is as an unnamed reference in Galileo's 1632 publication, you know, the dialogues concerning the two chief world systems, the book that got Galileo in trouble. Anyways, in that book, Galileo trashes this work of Locher's, saying that, you know, the guy was either naive, he was incompetent, or in one way or another wasn't being a good scientist. Well, Christopher Graney has been investigating this book, and because he's adept at Latin, and so is his wife, they've actually translated Locher's book to English for the first time. This is surprising, that this is the first complete translation of a book of a scientist who was in disagreement with Galileo. What we've had before were translations of all the academic or more religious objections to Galileo. But the scientific objections to Galileo have been left sort of unaddressed up until now. So Graney was asking the question, and if you look on this picture here, there's this very fine, thin line along the edge here in Locher's sketch. And this, which shows up in so many of these other sketches here, some of these are more older sketches, and here's a more complete, accurate sketch. And what he was interested in was this limb brightening, because this spoke directly to the argument of the time about what was the moon made out of. Obviously, Locher was able to see everything Galileo saw on the moon, but he had a very different interpretation of it. He said, yeah, it's not the smooth crystalline sphere that Aristotle told us about, but on the other hand, it isn't quite the same earthly body that we know and stand on today. And one of his arguments had to do with this limb brightening that you see him quite definitely defined in this picture. His interpretation of limb brightening was that it was due to the fact that the moon was a very different body from the Earth. Remember, it was supposed to have been composed of ether and all these other unworldly type materials. And he maintained the idea that this earthshine, for instance, that you can see at the edge, which is brighter on that limb, that edge brightening, was due to the fact that the moon was translucent, and that what you were seeing there is the sun shining through the thin part of the moon. The reason why it isn't shining as brightly here was that the moon was thicker. They had done experiments with translucent spheres and could see what translucent spheres did to light that was shining through it. So they knew how to interpret how light passes through translucent spheres. And he came up with his argument saying that what you're seeing here is a translucent body that's allowing some of the light of the moon through. Now, of course, we know this light to be due to the reflection of the Earth. And Locher also knew this as well. He just didn't think that the amount of light that the Earth could reflect could actually cause the amount of Earth shine, as we call it now, that you could see that much of the Earth shine. So his interpretation was, what we were seeing was the translucent moon allowing some of the sun's light to go through it. So there was Locher's argument, and Christopher Graney is now investigating this, saying, well, is this really so? Here are a bunch of sketches showing it. And he went and looked at a bunch of photographs, and he says, I don't see it on the photographs. And he's wondering, why don't I see this on the photographs and why I do see it on the sketches? And so this points towards a human visual illusion type explanation for what might have been going on. Of course, they had no idea about this at that time, except Galileo kind of got close. In his dialogues of the two chief world systems, he has his spokesman make the claim that, yes, you can sort of see a brightening on the limb here. On the edge seems to be brighter, but that's an illusion due to the fact that you see this bright side here, and the earth shine here allows you to think that this gets continued on the other side. And Galileo, arguing through his spokesman Salviati, criticizes Simplicio, saying, you know, the guy who made that claim, Locher, that's our guy here, is he wasn't sophisticated in his observations. But Simplicio comes back and says, no, actually, he was aware of that explanation, and he did, as you suggested, and he did put the bright part of the moon behind an object, so he was only looking at the dark side of the moon and that thing, and he said, I could still see the effect. So Galileo was sort of onto something when he thought that this might be an illusion, but he didn't quite get the story quite right. And as far as the debate as to the nature of the moon back in the early 1600s, the question should have still remained open because the effect was still there despite Galileo saying that it shouldn't be. And when Simplicio tells Salviati that, no, he tried your experiment and he could still see the limb brightening, Galileo's only response at that point was, well, he's not just incompetent, he's a liar. And that was about as far as the debate went at that point. So Graney has gone back and looked at all sorts of sketches, and then once we get the photographs, and I'm a bit curious in my understanding of what Graney's been doing here, because I've looked at some photographs, and on some photographs you can see this limb brightening this way. So it's not just the illusions that you see out there under the stars, but there is a situation where even in photographs of a certain kind, there is a obvious limb brightening effect to be observed, even in photographs. And you have here modern pictures. This picture up here, this is Erica Ricks, and this is Deirdre Callahan, who have literally written the book on sketching the moon. And they have been able to document that, no, when they draw this in their picture, they're really seeing it too. So even though we now know that this isn't a translucent moon, the data for the argument is still there. So what's happening here? Well, you have to jump forward about 250 years to the German physicist Ernst Mach, who discovered this peculiar illusion that we all suffer from here. So don't adjust your set. You're seeing exactly what you should see here. This is a set of lines and bars, vertical bars here. And this is just a gradation in intensity from dark to brighter. But the thing to note here is check what happens across any boundaries here. You'll see where this appears to have a light bit against a darker bit on here. And if you look across any particular bar, This side of the bar looks lighter than the right-hand side of the bar. Same here. This side of the bar looks lighter than the right-hand side of the bar in all of these cases. This is what's known as the Mach bands illusion. And he, in 1865, was starting to investigate as to what could actually be going on with our vision to cause this sort of thing. And if you look under like a Wikipedia entry for the Mach bands and the explanation of it, you'll see that the illusion that we're suffering from is something that we have probably evolved to help us discern faint contrast issues out there in our real world. So it might have actually had survival value for us to be able to detect small gradations of difference in shading that allows us to recognize predators, prey, whatever, in very low lighting situations. Although this effect doesn't worry about intensity, it's there at all intensities. And in modern terms, what the Mach bands illusion is all about is something called the spatial high boost filtering that human vision employs. And it has to do with what you'd call a lateral attenuation of the way in which the retinal sensors are picking up data when it gets something close to a slight change in the intensity levels. Now, the interesting thing about this description is those people who are into astrophotography and the imaging, one of your procedures, the procedure of unsharp masking, is exactly the same kind of procedure that our brains are kind of hardwired to do as well. They give you a situation where you make a finer distinction than what would otherwise be there, because each one of these bands is really just one color, despite the fact that it looks dark at this edge and light at this edge. This is just an illusion. And it's an illusion that we face when we look up at the moon, or it's an illusion that we face when we look at our photographs. Matter of fact, this issue of interpreting Mach bands has consequences that are far more serious in nature. For instance, dentists doing x-rays, for instance, can misdiagnose problems in your teeth because they're interpreting Mach lines and Mach bands as being problems, faults in your teeth. Radiologists, we should get Cliff maybe to comment on some of this stuff, but radiologists as well have to take into account that our brains can lie to us, and they lie to us for good reasons, because this has been evolutionarily helpful in the past. But it makes for kind of an interesting sidelight in determining what happens in the way in which our scientific arguments get carried out. For instance, this idea of the moon having a translucent characteristic to it, this has persisted long through our history, and even as late as the 1840s. So, you know, astrophotography was just about getting going. You know, you still had Andrew Common still about 10, 15 years away from taking the first great astrophotographs. But you've got a debate that was rolling right through most of history, at least since Galileo and Locker had their set to. And what was happening was there's a lot of people that were still convinced that maybe the moon did have this translucent quality to it. And as late as the 1840s, you still had some astronomers saying, I regularly see stars through the edge of the moon. And they would make those kind of points. And then they would say, well, and the reason you don't see it is, you know, I've been observing an awful long time, and I'm a careful, you know, observer who's been doing this for quite some time. And if you keep practicing at it too, you'll eventually be able to see stars through the moon as well. So sometimes these appeals can be a little bit suspect at this point, but it's interesting to see the way in which this human fault has perpetuated one of the great scientific debates up until more modern times. And speaking of more modern times, this sketch of Deirdre Callahan, which was made, if you look real carefully right in here, you will see that she has the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction. So this sketch of hers was just done a little before Christmas, probably about December 18th or so from the position of that moon. And she is still drawing in her dark side bright edge on her moons, even though she now knows it to have been nothing but an illusion. But she's still trying to capture the human experience of it all. And this is her view on the one stormy night she had there in Ireland, where she's able to capture the view. And since a bunch of us in the Sketchers group were talking online about what we need to do to sketch the moon, while I was grabbing these images, I stumbled across some of her advice on this issue. I mean, she's a consultant to NASA and does all kinds of weird and wonderful things across the pond there to promote astronomy. But she's got this list of items for how she approaches her moon sketching. So I thought I'd put it in here and just read it for you. I have discovered that to achieve a good sketch, you have to want it. You have to look at what you want in a way to observe it and absorb it. You must take a mental note of your target. This is the kind of thing that I ask myself when I look at the moon for a sketch. Where is the light coming from? What kind of gray tones are on the view? This is where you might want to go to the black paper. Where are the dark areas and what shapes are they? What is interesting and how will I achieve it? Notice we've gone from just documenting it to highlighting particular aspects of the sketch here. And is there a bright area and how will I do it? Again, the problem that Eric was talking about. But this last point is intriguing to me. It says, where is the lunar drama tonight? And she's got it listed at number 6, but in talking with Sylvia, I think this is our number 1 point. When we go out and look at the moon some night and we take a look at all the craters, each one of us has to decide, well, before I sketch anything, where is the lunar drama? Where is the cool crater to try and capture tonight? Mm-hmm. And I think that she's got a great list of things here, although I think I would like to restructure the list of that.
Well, that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Jerry. And thank you for always sharing your knowledge with us and all your contributions in the Astro Sketchers list as well. We really appreciate this and all the time that you put into the presentation. So thank you for that. And so this concludes now our Astro Sketchers presentation. And just wanted to let you know that if you wanted to join any of these lists, we have the Winnipeg Astro Sketchers list. If you want to join it, you can just email me at arturis173@hotmail.com. There's also the National Astro Sketchers email list where you will see some of Eric's work as well and people from across Canada. And it's really interesting what comes out sometimes. Although sometimes it's really quiet, but lately we had some action, it seems. There's also the Winnipeg Forum, the Winnipeg email list, and then there's this website that I discovered, and probably everybody knows about it, but I just discovered it a few weeks ago. It's called Stargazerslounge.com. And it's basically a bunch of forums on anything about astronomy and astrophotography, equipment, telescopes, how to observe, and astro sketching. And the astro sketching forum is super active. Every day there's a new sketch, and it's from other places in the world, not just from here. So it's really cool. And yeah, if you would like to join any of these things, please email me. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you to all the presenters too for making the effort to present tonight. And thank you to Brian and the outgoing council too for all the support that we received from you guys all this time. It's really appreciated. All the volunteers rock. So thank you, everybody.
And the peaceful transition of power.
You have no idea how much restraint I had to put in to not make a joke like that tonight. Thanks, Jerry.
All right, thank you, everyone. That was great. Kind of learned something. I'm going to try to invert some of my drawings once I get into the sketching program. Again, thanks for everyone for joining us. Thank you, the panelists. Thank you, the members, for coming here. I don't know what else to say. We do have our Boston Pizza, so we can continue our discussion there. I'll be signing off as president, and Dennis will take over. But of course, I'll be part of the council. So again, thank you for everyone coming out, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
So the after meeting is when?
Right now.